Hello again, everyone. It's Mr. Most Days Off.
And I'm the WizKid.
And we're here to talk about PopThreads.com, our newest sponsor and your online destination for all pop culture t-shirts. And right now, for our listeners, they are offering 10% off just by using the discount code Simpsons at checkout.
Woohoo!
They have some awesome Simpsons shirts. They've also got other things like old school Nickelodeon, my favorite, Legends of the Hidden Temple, and they've got us wrestling fans covered.
They also have up to the current season t-shirts from TV shows like Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead. So make sure you head over to popthreads.com right now.
Use that discount code Simpsons
so you can save a lot of dope!
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. My name is Miles, better known as Mr. Most Days Off, and I am back once again to talk to you about The Simpsons. Today we've got a couple of excellent episodes with Homer vs. Lisa and the 8th Commandment, as well as Principal Charming. We also have quite a few notable first appearances to talk about, and we have a guest who's not on their first appearance. We have our first repeat guest. We'll get to him shortly, but first, let me introduce to you, your co-host with the most, Richie the WizKid. How are you today, Rich?
I'm very happy after these episodes today. Again, we get to have some throwback moments here that you forget about, and you forget just how good some of these earlier episodes actually are. But like you said, we'll get into that. I'll throw it back to you, the man, the myth, the Hans Mole Man. It is Miles.
Nice, how appropriate, speaking of first appearances.
Yeah.
And speaking of second appearances, we've got our first repeat guest, as I've mentioned. Now that we're in Trump's America, I wanted to make sure to have him back on the show before he was deported. Let me welcome to the show, Dr. Andrew Briseño.
Good evening. Welcome, gentlemen. It's so nice to finally be here once again. As of yet, I think I'm still a legal citizen of America. We'll see how that works.
I think you got till about mid-January, if I understand correctly.
Definitely. You know, you know what? Let's talk about The Simpsons. That's gonna make this so much
Andy,
better.
First of all, we really are happy to have you back, man. We had a lot of fun talking to you last time, and we're looking forward to talking to you again. And I want you to know, I'm not sure if you're aware or not, but something that you brought up on your first appearance has made itself into a running segment on our show. Maggie as a Muggle-born witch is a legit fucking thing, sir. Like, you are on to something, but I do have to say, you have a little bit of opposition, and I think you're going to be able to guess by who. Richie the WizKid over there feels like he can make a better argument that she is more likely a Jedi Knight than a Muggle-born witch.
No, get it right. She's a Jedi Master for what she's doing.
Well, understand though, we know that Jedis occurred in a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, right? So how are we actually unclear that the Force and the notion of magic as represented in the universe of Harry Potter aren't actually the exact same thing? I mean, is it possible that a high midi-chlorian count is responsible for Muggle-born witches in the first place, which would explain why wizarding is most of the time passed down generation to generation, but occasionally you end up with a squib.
All right, let's just go ahead and let's just make an effort at this point, since we're already down this road. Let's see if we can get the most nerds to jerk off during this next hour or so than ever in the world. Like, I want to be able to call Guinness by the time this conversation is over and just be like, collect the fucking tissues from across the nations, because this is getting fucking nerdtastic over here.
But just to be more clear, you want them to jack off while listening to us argue about a baby.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Did I stutter or misspeak?
No, I just wanted to make sure that everyone listening knows exactly what you mean.
But yeah, I think Richie actually has some examples that we've come across in the last few episodes of just like this whole Muggle-born witch, Jedi Master, Maggie thing, and like we're very grateful for your observation on that. I'm sure, honestly, we would have got there ourselves, but you implanted this early in the podcast, and it really has. It's been brought up at least once every single episode of our show. Maybe not every episode of The Simpsons, but at least every 2 episodes so far. We've had at least one example of Maggie having some sort of superpower.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's fantastic. And if we're trying to break some sort of nerd record, you guys should know I play both Dungeons & Dragons and fantasy football because I'm really good at pretending.
Oh, man, hold on. I got to time out Richie before he goes here. So I do have to throw this out. Our boy Andy got a little bit of heat last time because please go ahead and tell the people, what is your degree in again, and where are you do your doctor shit, man. Brag. You earned
Okay,
it.
sure. I have a PhD in English with an emphasis in creative writing from the University of North Texas.
So some haters once told me when they were listening to this podcast, they're like, as soon as they heard a doctor in creative writing, they instantly kind of scoffed at you. And I told you this, and I think you had probably the greatest response to those people. So fucking put it out there for the world. Let them know what you said.
So, to all of the haters out there, I would just say that everybody else's PhD is in uncreative writing, and they just don't have the stones to admit it. There it is.
I love that. That's great. But anyway, sorry, Richie, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, is all feedback good feedback? I didn't know we were getting a hate mail already this early in our careers.
Not you guys, just me. It's fine.
But anyways, first of all, Andy, I want to start this conversation off by saying I absolutely love your theory. I keep trying to bring it up as much as possible because I was captivated by it, man. It made really good sense. Everything seems to be working out fine. But then I started seeing Maggie doing things where it just seemed like she was using the Force, like you said. So I definitely like playing into the fact that it could very well be one and the same thing. But
How did Homer not get hit by that car while we're on the subject?
Oh.
Like, Maggie's not in the scene at the moment, but am I the only one who think he should have gotten run over and that he was that the car was stopped by some sort of magical
there
force?
you go. There you
Just
go.
saying. Anyways.
But no, I have instances like in the Truckosaurus episode where all the Simpsons are in the back seat, all the Simpsons are in the car being tossed around while Truckosaurus has them. You don't see Maggie's seatbelt on in her car seat, but she is staying perfectly still in the middle in the back, no matter what's happening. And so I'm just saying she's using the Force to stay put, and she's doing it without doing anything or saying anything. She also uses telekinesis to appear in one of Bart's visions and actually speak to him in the Thanksgiving episode when everyone's mad at him. She's the only one that really gets onto him, and she's actually speaking, which I thought was pretty powerful for a baby. And I wanted to just put it to like some major ones. The biggest one I have is the Itchy and Scratchy versus Marge episode, where she actually is on top of the shelf in the garage, hits Homer with enough force to knock him out cold with a hammer, and then when Homer has a trail of fake blood that's really paint trailing from him, in the very next instance, you see Maggie hitting the floor and walking into the other room. So it's one of those instances where, Jedis can jump extreme distances and make it look effortlessly kind of thing. She jumped from up high on a shelf down to the ground, and it was almost effortlessly. And she had done that once before earlier, getting out of her crib as well. So to me, I can see it going either way, but the more and more I see, the more I feel like she might just be a Jedi Master.
Like I said, I'm fine with that. I see the answer is yes, most definitely.
I say Andy coined the phrase "Muggle-born witch," and that the birth of it, we stick with it, man. You can't change the kid's name like halfway through kindergarten.
Why not? They changed Han Moleman's name in this episode.
Did they?
His ID actually reads Ralph Mellish, but he is called
Oh,
Hans
really?
Moleman through the entire series. I read it in my book, and then I actually saw it in the episode when I was trying to pause it. So you could change things.
These episodes do bring up a lot of interesting continuity jokes with later
Absolutely.
Simpsons, right? Like, in a lot of ways, these are just things that are going to happen when you're on the air for, 20 years. But there's
28.
definitely... Okay. But there's definitely a lot of things that become sort of ironic based on what happens in one of the episodes today that we're going to talk about.
And I'm ready to get into that.
So let's dive into our first episode. We've got Homer versus Lisa and the 8th Commandment, which debuted on February 7th, 1991. Welcome to 91, by the way, Andy. You were 90 last time you were here.
Outstanding. That means I was just barely 7, by the way.
Yeah, we were 6 as we are just slightly younger than you. So, first and foremost, I want to point out that there's kind of a funny part about this where Catholics and Lutherans have a bit of confusion going into the name of this episode because in both, not religions, because they're all Christians, but their denominations of Christianity, the 7th commandment is thou shalt not steal. I just thought that was somewhat interesting. Regardless, the chalkboard for this episode is I will not make flatulent noises in class. And the couch gag is actually pretty funny. They do a little line dance and then they sit down and spread their arms out as if they were bowing, essentially.
Did they walk like an Egyptian, by the way?
They did walk like an Egyptian, yeah. Very much like
Bengals
charitable.
reference.
Ninja Turtles 3 is what I was thinking.
Ooh, yeah, maybe so.
Casey Jones teaches him, I think, if I remember right.
Bodacious.
I'm so glad that Casey Jones just exists again in my life. Go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. He sucks in the new one, man. I hate to admit it because I'm a huge Turtles fan, but I have like the deluxe Blu-ray and I was rewatching it and I was like, fuck, they nostalgia bomb me. This movie sucks a D. Casey Jones is fucking awful. And I like Aaron Amell, I think his name is, or Steve Amell, right? But yeah, but he's not Casey Jones. Regardless, back to Simpsons. We got a bunch of first appearances. This one had two pretty awesome ones. One being Dredrick Tatum, the kind of Mike Tyson-esque boxer. And the other one, a little bit more substantial. We get the first appearance of Troy McClure. And once again, he's voiced by Phil Hartman, just like Lionel Hutz was a few episodes ago, which is fan-fucking-tastic. And I did a little research on the Troy McClure character. I was looking into it. He was actually a mix of personalities Trey Donahue and Doug McClure. So Troy Donahue and Greg McClure are both actors that were big in like the 50s and 60s. Actually, Doug McClure actually continued to act all the way into the 90s. He tragically passed of cancer in 1995 when he was only 59, but he had a long career. He had over 500 appearances according to IMDb. Regardless, something that I wanted to talk about that I thought was really cool is one of the writers met with Doug's daughters after he had passed, and they wanted to share with the writer that he absolutely loved that he was satirized on the Simpsons. He loved the show, and he just loved the idea. And the daughter actually shared that the kids, there was a couple daughters and a brother that wasn't present for the interview, but they all used to refer to their dad as Troy McClure behind his back, and they just got a kick out of the fact that he is part of pop culture history. I thought that was just kind of cool and kind of sweet. Both men were actually considered sex symbols back in like the 60s.
I can see all that in the characterization of Troy McClure, absolutely. Especially the way he talks. It just sounds like something from that generation.
And I believe that Phil Hartman also voices Moses at the beginning of the episode.
He sure does.
Which, I mean, if you're going to have Phil Hartman around, right, you might as well get him.
Might as well get him to voice Moses.
Exactly.
It just makes sense,
he had the voice of God in the last episode, right?
It's just so sad, every Phil Hartman episode, right? Oh,
it is.
But
yeah, we talked about that a lot on Bart Get Hits by a Car because Phil Hartman made his first appearance as Lionel Hutz in that episode, and he's fantastic, dude. And yeah, it's I'll say it again. Other than Chris Farley, I don't know another SNL member from that era that I miss more.
Fair deal.
So anyway, moving on with the episode, we actually kind of have a cool opening. We open with going back in a flashback of the past, or an imagination of the past, I should really say. Opening on Mount Sinai in 1220 BC, where we meet Homer the thief. And as a thief might, he's basically stealing the shit out of things from his friend.
And I don't remember their names, but we have like Azra, the graven image maker, and someone the adulterer.
It's Zolar the adulterer is who shows up, and he's talking to Homer the thief.
That guy won out on career canceling day. That's all I'm gonna say. It's like, wait a minute.
Oh man, yeah, he got the fucking long stick on that.
I just like that the adulterer was actually the same characterization as Jacques from an earlier episode where he was trying to steal Marge.
Yes, I was gonna point that out as well.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that. But you're totally right.
It was like the same exact face structure. It wasn't the exact same voice. But
yeah, it doesn't have the fake.
The same guy, Al
voice.
Jean.
Yeah,
he just didn't do the accent. Yeah, it was. I believe it was Al Jean. I don't know that for certain. However,
won't you please pick up that spare
mimosa?
Shortly after, Moses shows up with the 10 Commandments, voiced by Phil Hartman. One by one, every one of the characters we just met is being disappointed. There's a great moment where basically he reads, "Thou shalt not commit adultery," and Homer's like, "Whoops, sucks for you, keep them coming." And then immediately after it's, "Thou shalt not steal," to which he replies, "Doh!"
My favorite part is, "And here are the commandments in no particular order."
For sure. We open to present day in Springfield, where we see that Homer has just been dreaming. We then see him wake up to Ned in an argument. He's yelling at the cable guy because that scoundrel offered to hook him up illegal cable for only $50. Homer says, boy, what is this world coming to? And then immediately is like, gotta go. And we get to the scene that Andy alluded to earlier where he jumps in front of the truck to stop it and somehow, miraculously, does not get ran over.
It takes like a Matrix-style move from Homer, right? He ends up basically laying down under the truck, which, again, I'm not giving Homer credit for this, if I can avoid it.
Well, and keep in mind, he's got quite a gut on him, so that truck must have had quite a high lift on it.
That was a pretty extreme cable truck, I must add, right? I don't think they are using vehicles with that kind of off-road clearance these days.
Well, yeah, not in the gas prices of the day.
Well, we've also been
Not at
talking
all.
about Homer's unbreakability in recent episodes to go along with the Maggie theories, where we brought up the point that maybe Homer is Bruce Willis from Unbreakable.
Oh, wow, that could easily work as well, except then he wouldn't sit down, would he?
Yeah, he would just take the punch,
Yeah, he would just
basically.
get hit
But I
by
think
the
he'd
thing.
still try to hide it.
I don't know.
He doesn't want to make it public information, so he'll do his best to keep it secret.
You know, and I forgot in later episodes, the Doctor actually proves, I could hit you with this 2x4 all day long, but I have better things to do.
Where he's going to fight Frederick Tatum, I might add.
Yeah.
Oh, that too, yeah, and the one where he's a circus freak or a
Yeah,
performer where he
exactly.
takes the bowling ball to the gut.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Another fantastic
So
episode.
there's two we'll get to, yeah.
Why does it all tie in?
The grand unifying theory of the Simpsons. Go ahead.
For now, what we get is Homer is not above getting illegal cable for $50 a month, and he starts to question it a little bit as it's being hooked up, but I got the impression that he was more just afraid that he was going to get in trouble more than anything. But it's all good. The installer gives him a pamphlet, so you've decided to steal cable.
I want this pamphlet.
And it reassures
so bad.
him.
I know.
Right? Dude, I think I'm past the limit of statutations at this point that I can safely say that I had a legal satellite in like the 90s at one point, and it was fucking awesome because I got all of the channels, and this happened right around the time I was hitting puberty, so you can do the math.
Do you mean you were watching Top Hat?
I was watching Top Hat Entertainment like a motherfucker. I don't know how I didn't get dehydrated that year. Like I just that was like my favorite thing in the world, and I mean to some extent still is, but I've branched out a little.
But it brings up this whole dated idea of being able to steal cable, right? Like, I mean, it was just on the feed back in the day. I feel like perhaps there are millennials who might hear this and like completely not understand the idea of stealing cable, right?
Well, out of convenience and laziness, I own this season on DVD. However, I watch it through my cable provider, Nefarious Means, each and every week, just because it's so much easier.
You actually...
So it still exists.
It's true. Now, the idea of stealing content, we're still familiar with, I'm sure. But, like, the idea that you could climb up on the thing and patch into the actual cable and run that to your house, and all you needed was, like, a magic box to descramble the channels, and you could watch, yeah. My family, or not my family, my grandma also had also had stolen cable, and that also led to many nefarious things, etc.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. It was the greatest because you could watch all the movies and not just like HBO, but like the pay-per-view, which is something else we'll talk about here in a little bit.
I really, in particular, I feel like it's because I have HBO and channels like that now. And one of the myth fact points in the pamphlet I feel is actually spot on, and it makes me feel good if I was stealing cable, which it's
What is the 2-star movies that repeat all the fucking time?
No,
Yes.
It's only fair to pay for quality first-run movies. Fact, most movies show on cable only get 2 stars and are or less and are repeated ad nauseum. Like I feel like
and
that's
then there's the
appropriate.
ad for the Blockbuster channel, right? If
Yeah.
you didn't see the movie, or see it in the theaters, or watch it some other place, catch it here first.
I also really liked, there's a really, really subtle joke here, and I'll be honest, I did not catch this myself. I read this on the internet, but I did double check the math, and it's spot on. Homer says, or the cable installer says, one of them says, when they're talking about the hookup, that they have 68 channels, 1,600 hours of quality programming every day. And it just so happens that if you were to divide 1,600, the number of hours of quality programming they have, by 24, the number of hours in a day, you end up with 66.6 repeating.
Okay.
I thought thought that was awesome. The 666 reference to the whole hell concept. I thought that was fucking perfect.
I like where they're going with that, particularly.
I'm kind of ripped off because that means it's not. It should be 68, so that you have 68 premium channels.
Well, they round.
Well, I don't know. I thought that was a really cool joke. Apparently, I'm the only one.
Yeah. You are.
Fair enough.
That's a good thematic element there, Miles. I'll give you that.
I love the Jerry Seinfeld bit,
Oh, God.
which is the Simpsons poking hard at their biggest competition at the time. Right?
Oh, hell yeah.
It's like,
Most boring stand-up ever.
exactly. Observational humor kind of being the worst. MTV for the kids, VH1 for us.
I also like the channel that Homer used to convince Marge that this might not be such a bad thing. It was called Hear Me Roar Network for Women. And on today's episode of whatever, they were learning how to make your own Band-Aids, which Marge thought was a wonderful idea.
I just like, well, that isn't the other way he pitches it? Is that what he says, like, she wants to know the cost, and he says, nothing a month? Yeah, I think we can swing that.
Yeah, I was right in that same conversation where she was kind of questioning how morally okay that would be.
And then we get that amazing, just continuous montage of Homer watching cable channel.
I have to say, my absolute favorite part, and I know you guys both caught it as well, we get pro wrestling from Mexico, and Homer, of course, says, and down there, it's real, which I have to do a quick plug for my other show on voicesofwrestling.com, Lucha of the Hidden Temple for all of you wrestling fans, weekly recap of Lucha Underground. But anyway, I love the idea that Homer thinks that Mexican wrestling is real.
So, I have to make a hilarious shout out. I'm sure the Simpsons are doing this on purpose, but if you listen closely, the guy, the first line he says isn't in Spanish. He just says it in a bad Mexican accent.
I didn't catch that at all.
And then he put him in a sleeper hole. ¿Dónde están los médicos de Mexico? Which is the wrong way to say, where are the Mexican doctors? Which obviously you wouldn't say, where are the Mexican doctors, right? Like, I mean, like when you're a Mexican, they're just doctors.
They're just doctors.
Kind of like tacos are just food.
Tacos.
I thought that was hilarious.
I'll be honest, I didn't catch that at all, and that is really funny. I'm glad you did. That's why I brought a Mexican on the show for this episode. It was for that one line.
I thought it's just so you could make jokes at him the whole time.
Yeah, we're at 4, by the way.
Already? I hope you took the over again, brother.
Oh, I did. Don't worry.
I know you always take the over on this.
When in doubt, taking the over.
When Miles is involved, take the over.
One more show he's watching that I just absolutely fell in love with: the World Series of Cockfighting, live from New Orleans.
I think that was canceled due to flooding, if I heard correctly.
I might be wrong, but I think cockfighting was still legal in Louisiana in the 90s. I could be wrong about that, but yeah. My 15-year-old student is shaking his head in firm confirmation. He's got a long-eyed stare as a man who has seen many a cockfight and lived to tell the tale just barely.
I wonder what it's like hearing a third of this conversation. Like, I just thinking about that. Like, let's all put ourselves in your student's shoes real quick and just imagine how fucking crazy he must think the person he works for is right now.
Yeah, I imagine like right now he has running through his head consistently. It's this in the cafeteria. It's this in the cafeteria.
Choose the cafeteria, kid. So we get to church.
We're back in church. I hope you guys have me on every time they go to church, because church is amazing.
That's one of the running themes. We'll get to some more that have tied the first episode you were on with this one. But yeah, they are back in church once again. And Bart's super excited because they're going to get to learn about hell.
Which, incidentally, they were learning about the last time I was on, I might add.
Yeah,
the
they
Simpsons
were, weren't they?
just don't give them too much of a crap about continuity, and I, as a writer, support this wholeheartedly, right?
It makes life a lot easier, I imagine.
Mm-hmm, sure. And I mean, like, honestly, does this really matter that much? No. It's hilarious. Also, there are pirates in hell, in case you guys didn't know.
Cool, man.
I actually like the first question better. Like, when you just get used to it, you know, like a hot tub?
Which is a valid argument.
I like hot tubs, just saying.
I mean, you know, I do like the taste of coffee now. I'm just pointing that out.
You know, I've never got there with the acquired taste thing. I still stand by the fact, like, if you don't like it the first time, why in the fuck do you keep doing it to yourself? With that said, I do drink beer, and I don't remember liking that the first time I tried it, but I
Way to
eventually
talk
got
yourself
tired
into
of
a corner.
You've literally grown to like beer over the time you and I have known each other. So
Yeah, I'm now, like, way into, like, IPA, and Andy was way ahead of me on that.
and
so.
you used to make fun of me so hard for that, but
Because you drink beer that tastes... I totally get it when I give somebody an IPA, and they're like, oh my god, this tastes like asshole. How can you drink that? I'm like, I get it, man. I didn't like asshole the first time I tried it either.
yeah, you did.
I learned to love it.
The interesting thing I had about this scene in the church and Sunday school with the kids talking about it is, once again, I understand why Lisa is the one to have the morality issue going on here, but I still don't agree with it being her 100% as we grow to know Lisa over the years. I feel like feeling the pressures of what the church is saying won't apply to her a few more seasons down the road. So it's a little weird going back and seeing this and seeing her like not approaching something scientifically and instantly like listening to the Sunday school teacher and feeling terrible because they're stealing cable all of a sudden.
I think Lisa over the years becomes definitely more agnostic, if not atheist.
Buddhist. Doesn't she become Buddhist?
I mean,
Oh, you know what? She might.
She develops a strong sense of secular humanism.
Yeah,
over
there
the
you go.
course of time. Like the referencing episode is Lisa becomes a vegetarian.
Yes.
Which I believe is still in the future from right here.
Yeah, it is. It has not happened yet. Real quick, while you're on that point, we actually have another theory that's developed since you've been on the show, and that potentially the Simpsons don't air in consecutive order. Because there's a lot of times where certain factors don't seem to have taken place. Like, for instance, we have an episode earlier in this season where Homer falls into the Springfield Gorge, but in the next episode is perfectly fine.
That's where we came up with Homer's Unbreakable, though. Because that would make him okay.
Oh, yeah. We did already talk about that. Whatever.
It's possible, but I mean...
Weed's a hell of a drug. Go on.
Yeah, they definitely don't care about continuity, or at least not severely. And honestly, I approve of this, as I said. Right? Like, I mean...
Would you say that's creative writing?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, think about in the next episode, right, which I know we're going to get to eventually, but like all the terrible things that happen to the school.
Yes.
I don't want to watch Skinner fix all of that. I just like knowing, whatever.
Well, Willie's going to fix it.
Exactly.
Off screen.
Oh, dear sweet Willie. I love him so much. The poor guy. His life is hard. Anyways, so are we back to television yet? Because I want to talk about I Can't Believe They Invented It.
Yeah, we're talking about Lisa being pressured, and then is that when she goes home to talk to her dad about it while he's in front of the TV?
I think that's when we get Troy McClure and Dr. Nick.
That is Troy McClure and Dr. Nick coming in on...
I do want to point out right before that, and I do want to talk about that for sure, but I do want to point out, just because it gets into the rest of the episode later, there is a scene in the back seat where Bart is excessively using the word hell. And he's using the excuse that they learned about hell, and how in the hell is he supposed to talk about hell without using the word hell?
Hell if I know. That's
going to become a running theme throughout the rest of the episode, where Bart starts throwing in a lot of hells, and I just thought that was a fucking great running joke.
Totally, 100%. And, like, South Park's It Hits the Fan couldn't exist without this episode, right? I mean, it could, probably, but definitely.
But still, it helped.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like,
stop swearing.
Bart, you're no longer in Sunday school, don't swear.
So Troy McClure and Dr. Nick, I can't believe they invented it.
I can't believe they invented it either, if we're being honest. Also, Troy McClure starred in Here Comes the Coast Guard, which sounds like the greatest terrible...
No, I watched this movie about Burt Reynolds on a beach volleyball team once. That was probably the greatest, worst movie ever.
Whoa. Now that sounds almost as good as the sequel to the film starring Clint Eastwood and an orangutan.
I kind of thought it was interesting the fact that Troy McClure was paired with Dr. Nick,
everybody.
As was Lionel Hutz, who was also voiced by Phil Hartman. So both of Phil Hartman's main characters made their first appearance paired with Dr. Nick Riviera.
Oh, Dr. Nick, you make me so happy.
I didn't know inflammable meant flammable.
Speaking of flammable, there's a really dark scene where Lisa has a kind of a vision, I guess, while her family is watching the cable television, that they are burning alive and the devil is there basically prodding along. And it really starts to show like the wear that Sunday school lesson took on this 8-year-old little girl.
And as a
It's some
Catholic
pretty, scary
child,
shit.
like raised Catholic, I was terrified of this scene. And as I mentioned, my grandma was stealing cable at the time, and like I distinctly remember having to have like a close heart to heart with my dad regarding. It's like, wait a minute, is what's happening in The Simpsons real? And he explained to me that there's not really morality in the actual.
It's interesting you say that because Al Jean actually has said that whenever anyone says to him that The Simpsons is just some outrageous cartoon with no moral center, he actually picks this episode to direct them to. And it's also notable that at this time when this aired, there was a huge percentage of people who actually did steal cable. And it really was a topic that connected with a lot of people.
I'm just wondering if Andy had a similar talk with his dad in depth like Homer did with Lisa. And did he try to explain stealing to you the way Homer did to Lisa? Did you pay for your did you pay for your breakfast or your clothes?
The only part that was similar was the part at the beginning where Dad realizes he has to do some parenting and gets that oh god damn it face on. Right.
How did she get so moral?
That's amazing.
So yeah, there's a scene at the grocery store with Lisa and Marge, and like Lisa is really struggling with this stealing thing to the point that Marge tastes the grapes, which is like a totally normal thing. Like I go grocery shopping in my household, and like I totally will taste the grapes before I buy them because there's nothing worse than buying shitty grapes. But Lisa is like, Mom, you need to pay for those. So there's this kind of funny scene where the sales clerk is like, obviously like, lady, it's 2 fucking grapes. I don't care. But she's like, no, really, I need to pay for them. Please charge me something. In which like the guy could have just been like, fine, give me a penny. But instead he's like, can I get a price check on 2 grapes?
Yeah, and he's
2
got this
measly
amazing
grapes?
Brooklyn accent for no reason whatsoever, right? Hey, can I get a price check on 2 grapes here? 2 measly flipping grapes.
There it is.
Amazing stuff. For no reason.
When we get home, Lisa goes to her father, who is firmly planted in his groove, which we saw after he left for church, is basically a part of the fixture of the couch
Which is a
now.
real thing.
Which is a real thing. I mean, I think we all have an ass groove, let's be honest. I know my chair has a small. It's not as permanent as Homer's. Let's be real here, but I definitely sit in the one spot more than anywhere else. Right. Lisa is kind of giving her spiel to Homer about like how she doesn't really dig the fact that he's stealing cable and is scared for him and all that good stuff. And at this point, a commercial comes on where Homer just can't care because it is the bout to knock the other guy out. And hey, this time it's for money. All right. I like that Homer is like hugging the cable and he's like, how can a little insulated cable bring so much joy?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So actually, this is what I was talking about earlier. At this point I'm in the 90s, it's kind of crazy to think that like just paying your cable bill would get you this awesome fight, because like even by the time like we were, old enough to, I don't know, watch this show, when we were in like our teens, like pay-per-views was the thing. Like even if you had cable or satellite, any of like the actual fights anybody wanted to see, you had to pay an additional premium for. And I thought it was kind of interesting that they were just getting this fight for nothing other than the basic cable package.
Oh, the good old days.
Yeah, totally. And also I love the way that cable made you awesome, right? Like Homer is like
He's like a
winning
celebrity
at life because he has cable. Like up to and including his boss.
That's kind of like, that makes the stakes high enough though to where he has everything to lose except the one thing he can't lose, which is his daughter and her perception of him. So that just makes the stakes even higher for the final choice that he makes in the episode, I think. So again, clever writing, but it's like you don't want Homer to have to give all that up. And like I get mad that him and Bart can't watch it at the end. But it makes the stakes so much more important for him at the end. Like, he has to give up everything for Lisa, basically.
Yeah, it's a big sacrifice. It really is. I like that Burns was asked. I like that they kind of rationalized why Burns would want to go over to an employee's house instead of just paying for it himself. And he likes to have like the smell and be around the energy of other sweaty, smelly men while he's watching a good fight. And I think this got Smithers a little bit excited.
Which is interesting because he's not gay yet, Smithers. We'll get to there later.
He's shown signs,
Well,
dude. Yeah.
All I'm saying is we'll get to it later when Homer's in Terminator
he's
mode.
Not out.
It's not him that's a potential homosexual. He is a jerk.
No, what I liked is that Burns was talking about going to Homer's house, and like he was just there a few episodes ago, but he seems to have no recollection of already knowing where Homer lives.
Or have been there. Or maybe he does, because rusty screen door hanging off its hinges, mangy dog scrounging about, looking for a place to die. I mean, that kind of sounds like Evergreen Terrace to me a little bit.
Damn. Poor Homer.
We also get to Moe's Tavern where they're having a beer, and Barney asks Moe, "Why did you never get cable, Moe?" And he's like, it was that or the mechanical bull. I stand by my choice. And we get the mechanical bull sitting in the corner with just covered in cobwebs. Not exactly built for his clientele.
I want to know what it's hiding. It's Moe's Tavern. It's blocking something from view.
There's something behind it.
That's where the rats live. Like, there's something going on.
Yeah. My absolute favorite scene in this entire episode was when we get to Lisa meeting with Reverend Lovejoy in his office and discussing the idea of the 8th Commandment and what is stealing and what isn't stealing. And Lisa's bringing up, like, well, what if a man steals for his family because they're starving and he steals bread? And Reverend Lovejoy says that's stealing only if they put anything on it, like jelly or butter.
Yeah, exactly. Which goes to show The Simpsons always wants to poke a fun at the specific morality of Christianity and the fact that it's sort of always on shaky territory when you start poking at it. And also Reverend Lovejoy just being a hypocritical ridiculousness, which is funny throughout in so many different ways.
Sure.
Well, I like the exchange they have right after that, too, where he says, "Is your father stealing bread?" And Lisa's like, "No, well, maybe. I don't watch him every minute." And just the way she says it, like, she comes across where like it would not surprise her if he was, so to speak.
And I don't think it would surprise anybody.
I mean, dope.
Nicely done.
We then get to the network that Andy referenced earlier. Bart is watching Top Hat, which is basically a knockoff Playboy. They even suspect that it's kind of a poke at the Playboy image. We get an ay caramba when Bart sees his first image of porn. And I really dig the scene right after this. After Homer basically like scolds him for this, they're talking in bed, and Marge is kind of like reasoning like, Bart watched that dirty movie, and Lisa's all upset. And we get this, like, the first time Homer actually literally and figuratively puts his foot down about keeping the cable.
Which is a hilarious scene. I want to back up one moment, though, and talk about Homer's explanation of pornography to Bart, which is...
Yes,
he
says,
says,
you're right.
That's something for mommies and daddies that love each other very much. Which indicates that Homer and Marge have a pretty interesting viewing history as a couple. That's all I'm saying here.
They have a Pornhub account, or at least they view the free videos. Is what
My
you're
15-year-old
getting at.
judging me severely for having said that out loud, just so you guys are clear.
Well, he's got a Pornhub account too. Let's be real.
This means that Homer is probably a monster in the sack. I mean, as much as you see Marge love him, especially on their intimate scenes, he must keep things pretty interesting for her to stick around through all the shit she has to go through.
I think that's pretty reasonable. I mean, it one thing he could have going. It would all make sense.
Doofus in the street, dominant in the sheet. I mean, come on, let's go.
I mean, that's reasonable. I can't just... There's no evidence against that theory whatsoever.
I like one scene I wanted to bring up, because we were backtracking a little bit, is before we get to the scene with everyone coming over for the fight and him inviting everybody. There's a scene where Homer is watching the TV, and I think it was during the day, and you hear noise from the TV, and it's Itchy and Scratchy, and
it's from the episode though with Itchy and Scratchy and Marge.
Yeah.
It's the nice episode.
And I don't know why it was playing the Lemonade episode, because once Roger Myers Jr. wins his point and they get back to regular Itchy and Scratchy, why would they ever play that episode again?
I don't know. I thought that was a cool throwback, though. I mean, I agree with your point, but from just a Simpsons fan perspective, I thought that was a totally cool Easter egg.
And I like that Homer was seeing it, and he switched the channel over immediately too.
And you never saw the image; all you heard was the audio from that episode. I thought that was really cool. during that scene, actually, the cable guy kind of revisits the house, and he's like, the door was unlocked. I let myself in.
Oh, no. The door was not locked in any particularly serious way.
Yeah, you're right. So basically we learn that, like, in addition to, like, selling illegal cable, this guy is a total scoundrel, and he even is about to go take advantage of the fact that Ned Flanders isn't home. And this gives Homer the idea that they should bar up the windows, which they do. Bart, after having promised not to watch that channel anymore, is instead charging any of his friends, of course 8 and up, because he's got his fucking limits. Yeah, he's got moral standards. His compass points north, for crying out loud. But he's charging 50 cents a head, 8 and up, to come in, and they watch the program Broadcast Nudes, which is actually a rib on James L. Brooks, who we're very fond of, who's really been a crusader for this show in the early seasons. But the show he worked on previous to The Simpsons was a show called Broadcast News, so that's just a kind of fun little gag. I like that Homer comes in, and I believe it's Milhouse that yells out, "It's a raid!"
Also, Bart made like $25 off this. Like, I mean, there were a lot of kids piled in there.
Dude, Bart is a fucking, like, he's much smarter than he's let on.
He's street smart.
For sure. So it's the night of the big fight, and Homer has invited everybody in town, and even some people he didn't invite show up anyway, such as Monty Burns. He did invite Moe, and Moe shows up, and there's a great scene where he's like, Moe's here, hide the mugs. And then Monty Burns shows up, and he's like, Burns is here, we gotta hide everything I've stolen from work. Or he actually says borrowed, and then Bart corrects him, of course.
Which is just great, it just plays into the entire episode overall. Like, I loved that moment.
Yeah, it really fills in the theme of the fact that the cable is the current thing, but, like, and to be fair, if we're being honest, I think everyone can say they've at least taken, like, a pencil or something. Like, they always ask you on that, like, psychological exam or, like, test that you have to take before you get, like, an interview or whatever. It's like, if you take a pencil from the jar from work, is that considered stealing from the company? And it's like, fuck you, everyone's accidentally pocketed a pen, or was like, fuck, I need a pen, I'm taking one from work.
Which, for the record, those tests are intelligence tests. They're not a test of morality in any way. It's just so you don't hire anyone who's not smart enough to lie right there. And
yes,
say, yes,
Figure
absolutely,
out
it's stealing, and I would never do something like that. In fact, I'd report you.
Way to say that while you're at your job.
Public service announcement for anyone who lives in Louisiana. If you're filling out those job interviews, they don't want you to answer truthfully. They want you to answer intelligently.
I think that's true of the whole nation, not just Louisiana.
I was just trying to jab at your people.
That's fine. They don't claim me. So.
Neither does America anymore, I think Miles is going to say.
Oh! 5. That's the over. That's a win.
No, that's not. That's on Richie. That's only 1. I still haven't made my joke.
It doesn't count if I say what you were literally about to say? Speaking on behalf of Miles, there you go, I said it.
There you go. Counts for me.
I also really like that Burns says, I brought some snacks for the boys, and he gets out a single serving size of fucking
the
Doritos. Cheetos, there you go.
I wanted to say that I love the pre-fight warm-up movie that they're showing, including Dedrick Tatum, who is so obviously Holyfield versus Tyson before fighting.
Oh, of course.
But
yeah.
Him talking about how he grew up, and he says the conditions were irrevocable, which obviously is not the correct word to be used there, and I thought it was hilarious.
I like that they dedicated the fight to the other guy's manager who had just died after he dedicated the fight to him. I can dedicate it to him too, you know.
I would like to also dedicate this fight to his manager who recently passed away.
I also wanted to point out that the announcer during all this is actually the same announcer or the same voice actor as that did Dead Putting Society, which we raved on how
awesome.
Authentic he made it feel during that episode.
Yeah.
And same thing here. This felt like a boxing match, and everything felt exactly like watching boxing did back then. To your point, Holyfield and Tyson for sure.
Definitely.
So, bottom line of this episode, or the big reveal, if you will, is everyone basically in Springfield is watching this fight and the Simpsons home. And Homer is so conflicted with guilt that he grabs Bart, goes out into his front yard where he had previously shunned Lisa to. He walks up to his family, tells them that he's not fond of any of them right now, but he will not be watching the fight, and he'll be cutting the cable as soon as the fight is over. Lisa says something that feeds into a theme that Richie has talked about many times before. She says, "Dad, we may have just saved your soul." Homer replies, "Yeah, at the worst possible time."
It's so good. I mean, once again, the moral of The Simpsons is that real morality often, tastes terrible, right? I mean,
Yep.
it's so good because doing the right thing is such a bummer for Homer. And, it's a great episode because it truly demonstrates, what moral courage is. And yet at the same time, it's also seriously poking fun at the idea of having moral courage because at the end of the day, they were just watching TV, right? The TV does a reasonable job of pointing out that, you're going to have to deal with minor guilt throughout life, but there were actually no repercussions for stealing cable. The cops find out and wanted to watch too.
Yeah, they were another one of the uninvited guests, I should say.
Well, do you know that it's a myth that cable piracy is wrong?
There's a pamphlet about that.
The fact is that cable companies are a big, faceless corporation, which makes it okay.
Which, again, those two things don't contradict
I'm
each
fine
other.
with that.
Terribly bad arguing, but...
The pamphlet said so.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I gotta go with the pamphlet on this one, Andy. I know you've got a doctorate, but I mean, it's in creative writing, so I mean, let's be real.
That's fair.
Andy, do you have pamphlets?
Yeah,
I
you
don't
provide a
have one
pamphlet, and maybe we'll talk.
0 pamphlet.
So, I really dug the ending, though at the same time, I thought it was a little weird that he wouldn't just disconnect the cable from his TV end of things, as opposed to, cutting it from the fucking power line. He ends up, on the first try, cutting half the town's power, or street's power. The second try, he cuts the other half, and on the third try, he cuts our very own transmission, and somewhat of a fourth wall break, to some degree, and the credits roll over a fuzzy screen.
There it is. For the record, he totally should have died.
By cutting the power line? Yeah, for sure.
With the rubber gloves.
Yeah.
But what I liked is the moment where he decided he was going to go outside, where Homer had the little vision, and that he screams out Marge, Lisa, and Maggie's name, and then obviously doesn't scream out Bart's name because Bart's in there doing devilish things with him. But I really liked that moment overall. And the big reveal at the end of the episode, Bart is an Atlanta Braves fan. Go figure.
Well, that's also an old school cable joke because TNT or TNN used to broadcast Braves games, because there was an old contract, right?
Yeah, I was thinking it was Turner or TNN.
That was a common way back when my dad was a kid. He talked about how every weekend it was CBS or something like that always had the Yankees games because they were partial owners in the franchise as well. So that would make sense. I think it was CBS.
Hilarious.
So everyone in the country is only watching that one team, basically.
And yeah, you're going to become a fan by default, for sure. Andy, is there anything else you'd like to say about the episode Homer versus Lisa and the 8th Commandment?
I think we've covered all of the most brilliant parts of this, so I'm good here.
And Richie, how about you or that book of yours?
The book mentions there's something being watched on TV. I don't remember this at all. I don't know what the heck I was doing. It says we hear a part of Davy and Goliath episode where Goliath warns against using Dad's car.
Yes.
I did see that, yeah.
I did remember that.
I also saw that there is a trivia bit that apparently Ned Flanders' doorbell is actually the theme song for that Davy and Goliath show.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
I don't have that. I did not verify that. I read that from just on IMDb and did not bother to look into it further, but it's kind of a cool idea.
Excellent. All right, so Colin is leaving us. He said goodbye and also that he feels sorry for all us aging people trying to hold on to our youth.
The sorry part is he's going to be that way pretty soon, too.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell him that, though.
Let it be a surprise.
Indeed.
All right, everyone. This conversation got a little bit long again, but that's all right. We're just going to go ahead and split this one right here, and we will be back next week to continue our conversation with Dr. Andrew Briseno as we discuss the episode Principal Charming. In the meantime, make sure you head over to Twitter and follow our show at Best Darn Diddly. You can also follow me at MrMostdaysOff and Richie at TheWiz_Kid23. We look forward to seeing you next week for more of the Best Darn Diddly Review Show.